They say patience is a virtue, but no one tells you what to do when your patience becomes other people's ladder. When your hard work becomes invisible. When the people you trusted to see your worth pretend you don't exist. I learned this the hard way on the day I was passed over for a promotion for the 12th time. Not once. Not twice. 12 times. And each time hurt more than the last. I remember sitting there in that stiff conference room, pretending to smile while my manager announced another well-deserved advancement for someone who had joined after me. Everyone clapped. I didn't. I couldn't. My chest felt tight, like the applause was mocking me. Like every sound reminded me of how small they wanted me to feel. But the thing about being pushed down for so long is that eventually, you learn how to stand up in a way no one expects. The moment they brushed me aside again, something changed inside me. It wasn't anger, and it wasn't bitterness. It was clarity. I finally saw the truth of that place, of the people who pretended to guide me while quietly using my skills for their own wins. I saw how they praised me privately but hid me publicly. I saw how my ideas were suddenly genius, only when someone else repeated them louder. And I saw how the word promotion became nothing more than bait to keep me working harder for them, not for myself. I walked out of that meeting with a strange calmness, the type you feel when you stop expecting fairness from people who don't know the meaning of it. As I walked through the hallway, I could feel the eyes of my coworkers on me, some with pity, some avoiding contact as if my disappointment was contagious. But the one that bothered me most was the satisfied smirk of Daniel, the guy who had gotten the promotion that should have been mine. He nodded at me like he was blessing me with his success. I smiled back, but inside, I promised myself this would be the last time anyone made me feel powerless. At home that night, I didn't cry the way I usually did after getting overlooked. I didn't lie awake questioning my worth or replaying every mistake I ever made. Instead, I opened my laptop, stared at the blank screen, and asked myself one simple question: what would happen if I stopped giving them everything they took for granted? What if I stopped being loyal to people who were loyal only to their convenience? What if I stopped waiting for a promotion and created something that would make them realize what they lost? The more I thought about it, the more my plan formed. Not a revenge plan in the toxic, harmful sense, but a quiet, strategic rise. The kind of rise built on dignity, skill, and truth. The kind that doesn't break rules or hurt anyone, yet still shakes the ground under the feet of those who underestimated you. I wanted something clean but powerful. A revenge that didn't involve shouting or plotting. A revenge built on success that belonged only to me. I started listing everything I had ever done for the company. Every system I improved. Every project I rescued. Every late night I had stayed behind so someone else could shine in the spotlight. And as the list grew longer and longer, I realized I had been running most of the department without the title, without the recognition, and definitely without the pay. My value wasn't small. They just made sure it looked that way so they could keep me. That realization lit something inside me. So I began working, not for them anymore, but for myself. I used evenings and weekends to build something new. Something aligned with my skills, but free from their control. I researched, learned, tested, failed, tried again, and improved quietly. No announcements, no hints. Just progress happening in silence. I didn't want anyone to know what I was doing. I wanted it to be the type of shock that made people question how they didn't see it coming. But the truth is, they never saw me as worth paying attention to unless they needed something from me. Meanwhile, things at work stayed the same. They gave me extra tasks with the excuse that I was reliable. They handed me responsibilities that belonged to people with higher titles because I was capable. They used flattery to hide exploitation. And for the first time, I didn't mind. Because now, every extra task they dumped on me only made my exit more powerful. I smiled, did what I needed to do, and kept my plan moving quietly behind the scenes. But then something interesting happened. The company began struggling. Not financially, but operationally. A lot of things I used to manage smoothly started to fall apart the moment I stopped doing them with the same intensity. They didn't realize how much I held together until little cracks started showing. Emails were delayed. Reports were inconsistent. Clients complained. And slowly, whispers began spreading around the office, whispers that maybe they had undervalued the wrong person. One day, my manager called me into her office. She tried to sound concerned, asking if everything was fine at home, if I felt tired, if I needed a break. I knew she wasn't worried about me. She was worried about losing the one person keeping things functional. I assured her everything was fine. She nodded, but her eyes told a different story. She was worried, very worried. Weeks passed, and my secret work continued until finally it was ready. My new path, my way out, my quiet revenge. And when I submitted my resignation, the silence in that office was louder than any applause I had missed. My manager froze. Daniel looked confused. HR panicked. And for the first time in years, I felt weightless, free. But what happened after I walked out of that building, what happened in the days that followed, was something I never expected. Something unbelievable. Something that made the same people who ignored my worth for years suddenly chase after me, message me nonstop, and even beg me to come back. And the way it all unfolded is a story you won't forget. But to understand why they reacted that way, and what I revealed that turned everything upside down, you'll have to hear what happened next, because the real shock didn't start when I left. It started when they realized what I took with me, and that is where everything changed. I didn't look back when I walked out of the building that day, but the truth is, my mind stayed trapped inside those walls long after my feet crossed the parking lot. The weight of 12 rejected promotions didn't disappear just because I finally chose myself. If anything, those memories came rushing back even stronger. Every late night I spent alone in the office. Every time I trained someone who would later be promoted over me. Every casual promise from management that, your time is coming. I used to believe them. I used to cling to their words like they meant something. But now, standing outside with my resignation email sealed and sent, I realized how easy it was for people to lie when they knew you were desperate to believe them. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual out of habit. My body was so used to rushing through routines, checking emails before breakfast, finishing half-completed tasks, worrying about deadlines. But this time, there was no alarm buzzing with urgency, no unread messages from stressed managers, no guilt pushing me to hurry. Still, I couldn't slow down. My mind kept replaying the last few months at work, the moments that had quietly shaped my decision long before I submitted that resignation. Most people think a toxic workplace shows itself through yelling or obvious disrespect, but for me, it was the silence that hurt the most. The silence when I shared ideas and no one acknowledged them. The silence when I stayed late to finish work that wasn't even mine. The silence when I stood in meetings, invisible, while someone else repeated my thoughts louder and received praise. That silence wasn't empty, it was crushing. It whispered that my worth was negotiable, that recognition was optional, that effort didn't matter unless it came from the right person. It wasn't always like that, though. When I first joined the company, everything felt hopeful. The office was bright, the team was welcoming, and my manager seemed genuinely supportive. I was eager to learn, eager to grow, eager to help. The company marketed itself as a place that valued dedication and fairness, and for a while, I believed in that vision. I worked hard, not for applause, but because I enjoyed being someone people could trust with responsibility. That's how the pattern began. A little help here, a little extra there. Fixing someone else's report, organizing data for people who didn't know how, covering shifts when someone wanted to leave early. Slowly, without even noticing, I became the person who carried everything that slipped through the cracks. And every time I stepped in, they stepped back. Every time I handled more, they expected more. It wasn't long before my helpful nature became their excuse to overload me. But the worst part wasn't the work. It was watching people with half the experience and a fraction of the dedication move ahead of me. People who walked in late every day. People who didn't know how to write a simple email without asking someone else to review it. People who treated the job like it was something temporary, a stepping stone. And yet, they were the ones celebrated, applauded, promoted. I tried talking to my manager once about growth opportunities. I remember her smiling politely, nodding along as if she understood my frustration. But her response was gentle and dismissive. "Be patient," she said. "These things take time. You're doing amazing work and we notice it. Trust the process. Trust the process." That phrase became the rope that kept me tied to a place that didn't deserve me. Still, I stayed longer than I should have, hoping things would change. And maybe they would have, if I had continued giving everything without asking for anything in return. But the more I grew, the more useful I became, and the less incentive they had to elevate me. Why promote someone who already does the work without the title? Why raise someone's salary when they're already giving you double the value for less? It wasn't until a coworker, Maya, pulled me aside one day that I first saw the bigger picture. She was one of the few people who noticed the unfairness, even if she didn't say much. "You know they rely on you too much, right?" she whispered while pretending to organize files. "You're the one keeping this place running." I laughed it off, thinking she was just being kind, but she shook her head. "I'm serious. If you ever left, half this department would fall apart." Her words lingered in my mind longer than I expected. At the time, I didn't think I'd ever leave. I was too loyal, too hopeful, too invested. But as the promotions kept skipping over me, Maya's voice came back to me again and again. Maybe she saw something I didn't. Maybe everyone did. After I left the company, I didn't expect anyone to contact me, not immediately at least. I thought they would get by just fine, but the reality was different. The second day after my resignation, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Missed calls, voicemails, emails marked urgent, messages from managers pretending to be warm. Daniel even sent me a long paragraph filled with fake concern and backhanded compliments about how things haven't been the same since you left. I didn't reply, not yet, because the truth was, I already knew things were falling apart. I knew exactly what I had taken with me, not documents or secrets, but something far more valuable. I had taken the structure, the flow, the knowledge they never bothered to understand. I had taken the consistency that kept everything connected. And now, without it, they were scrambling. But I didn't plan to go back. I didn't want to return to a place where I was appreciated only when they felt my absence. Instead, while they were trying to figure out how to fix the mess, I was quietly strengthening the new path I had built for myself. The more progress I made, the more confident I became. I wasn't chasing revenge, I was chasing peace. But sometimes, the journey toward peace ends up feeling like revenge to the people who never valued you. Still, there was one thing I hadn't expected, something strange that started happening a week after I left. Something that made me pause every time my phone rang. Something that made the tension around my story twist in a new direction. A message came through late one night, not from management, not from HR, and not from Daniel. It was from someone who had never contacted me outside the office. Someone who barely spoke to me at work. Someone who, for reasons I couldn't understand, suddenly seemed desperate to reach me. And their message wasn't an apology. It wasn't flattery. It wasn't a polite request for help. It was a warning. A warning that made everything far more complicated than I expected, and hinted that what I had walked away from wasn't the whole story. Not even close. And what the message said was something I couldn't ignore. The message came from someone I never expected. Aaron, the quiet analyst from the finance team. He was the kind of person who blended into the background, always polite, always careful, never involved in office drama. We spoke only when necessary, usually about numbers or deadlines. So when his name popped up on my phone so late at night, it felt strange. And the message felt even stranger. "Don't ignore this. Something is happening at the office. You need to be careful." I stared at the words for a long time, trying to make sense of them. Careful of what? I didn't work there anymore. I had cut ties cleanly. What could possibly reach me now? At first, I wondered if maybe someone was trying to manipulate me into coming back. Maybe they had convinced Aaron to send me something dramatic. But he wasn't the type to get involved in anyone else's agenda. He barely talked during team meetings, let alone conspire with management. I typed back a simple question. "What's going on?" He didn't reply immediately. Minutes passed. Then an hour. I kept checking my phone, but it stayed silent. The unanswered message sat on my screen like an open door I wasn't sure I wanted to walk through. The next morning, I woke up with a mix of confusion and curiosity. I tried to focus on my own work, the new project I was building, the future I was shaping, but my mind kept drifting back to that warning. Words like tension, conflict, and sabotage kept circling my thoughts. What had actually happened after I left? Why would Aaron contact me of all people? Later that afternoon, he finally responded. "It's about the system you use to manage. Things aren't adding up. Meetings behind closed doors. Missing files. People acting nervous." I can't explain everything yet. Just don't trust anyone from the company if they reach out. I read the message 3 times. Missing files, nervous people, closed-door meetings. None of it made sense to me. All I took with me when I left were my own notes, my personal templates, and the knowledge I had earned through experience. Nothing belonging to the company. Nothing confidential. I made sure of that. I wasn't the type to burn bridges. But apparently, the bridge was shaking on its own. Deep down, I knew something wasn't right even before Aaron messaged me. The sudden panic-filled emails. The calls from HR that didn't sound like concern. They sounded like fear masked as politeness. The way Daniel kept trying to reach me, even though we were never close. It was almost as if they weren't worried about losing me, they were worried about something else tied to me. A part of me wanted to ignore all of it and move on. I had left for peace, not for involvement in whatever new chaos they created. But curiosity is a stubborn thing. And this story, my story, felt like it wasn't done with me yet. I decided to message Maya, the one person I trusted from that place. She replied within minutes, almost as if she had been waiting for my text. "I can't talk here," she wrote. "Call me when you're alone." Her urgency made my stomach tighten. I called her immediately. She picked up on the second ring, whispering like she was hiding in a corner. "You didn't hear this from me," she said. "But ever since you left, the whole department is in chaos. Reports aren't balancing. Clients are asking questions. Everyone is stressed. But the weirdest part, no one is allowed to mention your name." That stopped me. "What do you mean?" "They act like you don't exist. If anyone brings you up, management shuts them down." I heard them tell one supervisor to never compare current issues to previous staff members. "They're pretending you were never here." I didn't understand. If anything, they should have been admitting they needed help. Why erase me? Before I could ask anything else, she lowered her voice even more. "And there's something else you need to know. They're running an internal review. Something about discrepancies in the systems you handled. But everyone is too scared to talk about it openly. I don't have all the details yet, but it feels wrong." It hit me like a cold wave. Discrepancies? In my systems? Impossible. I kept everything clean, balanced, documented. If anything was wrong, it happened after I left. Or someone was using my absence as an excuse to cover their own mistakes. "Be careful," Maya whispered. "I don't think they're looking for you to come back. I think they're trying to protect themselves from something. And somehow, your name is involved." After the call, I sat in silence. Too many pieces, not enough answers. But one thing was clear. The main conflict wasn't just being passed over 12 times. It wasn't just about being undervalued. Something deeper had been happening under the surface, something I was only now starting to see. And whether I wanted to or not, I was part of it. That night, I couldn't concentrate on anything. Every detail of my past months at the company resurfaced. The sudden shifts in responsibility. The times people avoided explaining why certain decisions were made. The way management praised team efficiency without ever acknowledging actual work. And then the 12th promotion, given to Daniel, who never seemed stressed because he always had someone else, me, doing his hard tasks. Suddenly, all of it felt connected in a way I hadn't seen before. What if they were using me for more than just labor? What if someone had been hiding behind my work to cover their own errors, and my departure ripped away their shield? The tension grew even more when I received another message that night, this time from an unknown number. "We need to talk. I know why they're panicking." And it started long before you resigned. There was no name, no hint of who it was. Just 12 words that made my heartbeat slow and heavy. I didn't reply right away. I sat with the message, aware that every choice from this point could pull me deeper into a mess I never knew existed. I hadn't expected my quiet exit to shake anything. I never imagined the cracks in the company would widen without me there to patch them. But now I realized I had been holding together more than a workload. I had been holding together secrets, patterns, and processes that certain people depended on. And now, with me gone, the truth was crawling its way out. But the most unsettling part wasn't the warning messages, or the missing files, or the strange silence around my name. It was the growing feeling that all of this, every overlooked promotion, every shift of responsibility, every closed-door meeting, had never been random. It felt planned, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had unknowingly stepped out of a story that wasn't just unfair. It was dangerous. And the worst part, I still didn't know who was behind it, or what they wanted from me next. The unknown number kept flashing in my mind long after I put my phone down. I tried telling myself it was nothing, maybe a wrong number or someone playing around, but deep down, the message didn't feel random. It felt connected, like another piece of a puzzle I didn't fully understand yet. I kept rereading it, trying to imagine who could have sent it. Someone inside the company. Someone who knew what was happening behind those closed doors. Someone who had been watching everything long before I even realized something was wrong. The next morning, I woke up with a strange heaviness, like the air around me was thicker. My mind was alert, restless, and full of unanswered questions. I checked my phone again. No new messages. No hints. Just silence, the kind that makes your thoughts louder. I knew I couldn't keep ignoring all of this. Something bigger was happening, something that involved me in ways I hadn't wanted to accept. And the more I pretended it didn't matter, the more it weighed on me. I decided to call Aaron. He hesitated before picking up, and the nervousness in his voice was impossible to ignore. He kept his words short, careful, almost like someone might be listening. "I can't talk long," he said, "but things are getting worse." "What happened now?" I asked softly. "They're checking all the systems again. Your name keeps coming up in meetings." "Not directly, but implied." He paused. "They're trying to trace old access logs. They're acting like something important is missing, and they don't want anyone to know." His words hit me like a cold splash of water. Why would my name come up? I didn't take anything. I left everything clean. "I know," he whispered. "That's why it doesn't make sense. But someone is trying to connect your work to the current problems. And it feels intentional. Intentional." That word echoed through me. Someone wasn't just replacing me. They were rewriting the story of what happened after I left. And maybe even before. As soon as we ended the call, I felt like I needed answers from someone who wasn't afraid to speak clearly. So I reached out to Maya again. She didn't reply immediately, but a few hours later, she texted me. "Meet me." Not at the office. Somewhere outside. Those words alone made my pulse quicken. I chose a small cafe a few blocks away from my apartment, quiet, not crowded, the kind of place where conversation stayed private. She arrived 10 minutes late, hair slightly messy, eyes tired, like she hadn't slept properly for days. As soon as she sat down, she leaned in. "I don't know how much time I have," she said, "but you need to hear this." She glanced around before continuing. "Yesterday, after hours, a group of managers had a meeting. The big conference room, the one they never use unless something serious is going on. They closed the blinds. Security was outside the door. It wasn't normal." "What were they talking about?" I asked. She lowered her voice even more. "You." My stomach tightened. "Why?" "Because the old reports you handled, they're missing. All of them." She paused. "Not deleted. Removed. Someone wiped the backups in the archives. And now things aren't matching up, and they don't know how to fix it, because you were the only one who fully understood that part of the system." Her words felt unreal. "But I didn't take anything. I didn't copy anything. Why would anyone think I did?" "That's the thing," she whispered. "Not everyone thinks you did. But someone wants others to think it. And whoever that person is, they're pushing hard." I sat there stunned. A part of me wanted to believe this was all some misunderstanding, but another part of me, one that had been watching quietly for years, knew better. Someone inside the company had always benefited from my silence, from my work, from my willingness to fix things without asking for credit. Someone who didn't want their name connected to mistakes. Someone who had a lot to lose if the truth came out. And now that I wasn't there to hold everything together, their cracks were showing. That's when I remembered Daniel. He had been too calm after the 12th promotion. Too ready. Too confident. And every time a problem came up under his name, it somehow disappeared before anyone noticed, because I fixed it. He never understood the systems. He never knew the details. He relied on me completely, but publicly acted like he managed everything himself. And now, with me gone, his problems were no longer disappearing. But before I could voice my suspicion, Maya shook her head. "It's not just him. I think there's more going on. Something no one talks about. I overheard two managers saying they should have handled things before you left. I don't know what they meant, but their tone, it wasn't normal. A chill ran down my spine. What do you think they're hiding? I asked quietly. She hesitated. I'm not sure. But there were financial reviews scheduled months ago. Internal audits. And suddenly, after you left, certain numbers didn't match. The company hasn't announced anything yet, but the finance team looks stressed. Like they're scrambling. Financial discrepancies. Internal audits. Missing reports. Pieces that didn't make sense before now started forming a dangerous outline. If someone had been covering up financial mistakes, or worse, my clean, organized work would expose everything. And with me gone, they no longer had control over the narrative. So instead of facing the truth, they were trying to twist the story. Maya touched my arm gently. Please be careful. Someone is trying to drag you into something serious. I don't think they want to blame you fully, but they want to shift suspicion. Just enough to protect themselves. As she spoke, I noticed something in her expression. Fear, but also guilt. Like she knew more than she was saying. Like she had seen something she wasn't ready to repeat yet. But before I could ask, she checked her watch and stood up abruptly. I need to go. If anything else happens, I'll message you. She walked away quickly, leaving me alone with more questions than answers. When I returned home, I found another message from the unknown number waiting for me. They're preparing something. Don't let them get ahead of you. Then another one followed seconds later. And don't trust the people you think you can. Not all of them. My heart pounded as I read the messages. The tension around everything was thick now, like something was building, rising, tightening, pushing toward a moment that was about to change everything. Someone inside the company was desperate. Someone outside was warning me. And someone in between was hiding the truth. The conflicts I thought I walked away from were twisting into something bigger, deeper, and far more intense than I ever imagined. And right as I tried to gather my thoughts, my phone lit up again, this time with a call from a number I recognized instantly. HR. Calling me directly. At night, I stared at the screen, pulse racing, knowing that answering this call might pull me straight into the storm I had just escaped. And nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what they were about to say. I stared at the HR number ringing on my phone, my thumb hovering over the answer button. A part of me wanted to ignore it, to let it ring into silence, but something in my chest tightened. If I didn't pick up now, whatever this was might grow into something worse. And deep down, I felt this call wasn't just about missing files or internal reviews anymore. It felt heavier. I finally answered, forcing my voice to stay steady. Hello. There was a brief pause, longer than normal, like the person on the other end was deciding what to say. Thank you for picking up, the HR representative said. Her tone was polite, but even through the phone, I could sense something off. Not panic exactly, but tension. Controlled worry. We wanted to speak with you regarding some recent findings. Findings? I repeated calmly. Yes, she said. We discovered activity in certain folders you used to manage. Activity logged after your departure. I froze. That's impossible, I replied. I don't have access anymore. I haven't logged in since the day I left. That's why we want to talk, she said quietly. Because the access used your old credentials. My breath caught in my throat. Someone was using my identity. I don't have those credentials, I said. And I don't know who does. I understand, she continued. But this situation is sensitive. We're trying to determine whether this is a system error or something else. If you're available, we'd like to schedule a meeting with you. Her careful tone didn't make me feel safer. It made me feel targeted, like someone was preparing a story and testing how much I knew before finalizing it. I'll need some time, I told her. Of course, she replied. But please get back to us soon. These discrepancies are becoming time-sensitive. As soon as the call ended, I felt a strange mix of anger and fear. Someone had crossed a line. This wasn't just manipulation. It wasn't office politics. Someone was now impersonating me inside a system I no longer belonged to. And HR wasn't calling to blame me, they were calling because they suspected something bigger. Before I even had time to process it, my phone buzzed again. A message from the unknown number. They called you, didn't they? My heart thudded. I typed back. Who are you? No response. Instead, another message popped up. Check your email. Now. I rushed to my laptop and opened my inbox. At first, nothing seemed unusual. But then I noticed a new email in my spam folder, sent from a burner address with no subject line. I clicked it, expecting nonsense. Instead, I found a screenshot, an internal system log, timestamped 2 days after I resigned. My username, my old Access ID, logged into a confidential financial folder. One I never touched. One only senior management was supposed to access. Under the screenshot, a single sentence was typed. They're framing you to cover something bigger. My hands trembled slightly as I read it again and again. It was the first time anything in this strange mess had been spelled out so directly. And suddenly, all the scattered pieces, missing reports, nervous managers, locked meetings, financial reviews, started forming a much darker picture. Someone wasn't just protecting themselves. They were preparing to shift the blame onto me. But for what? I immediately called Maya, needing a familiar voice to anchor me. She picked up and whispered, "I can't talk long. Things are getting tense. People are being questioned one by one." "I just got an email," I said. "A log showing someone used my credentials." She sucked in a quick breath. "Then it's worse than I thought." "What's going on, Maya?" She hesitated. "I heard rumors today. Quiet ones. About funds. Transfers. Approvals that shouldn't have happened. Something about an internal audit being moved up. And one phrase kept coming up. Find a fall person." I felt the ground shift under me. "You think that's me?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But the timing doesn't look good. And the managers who used to praise you, they're suddenly acting distant, like they don't want to be connected to you." The betrayal hit deeper than I expected. The same people who used my work, leaned on me, relied on me, they were now preparing to push me into the fire they created. But before I could respond, Maya said something that sent a new chill through me. "And Daniel, something is off with him too." My jaw tightened. "What about him?" "He's been meeting privately with 2 senior managers almost every day. Long meetings. Closed doors. And when someone accidentally mentioned your name near him, he froze. Not guilty, just scared." "Scared? Why would Daniel be scared of my name? Unless he knew something. Or did something." Before I could ask more, Maya whispered, "I have to go. If I hear anything else, I'll let you know." She hung up quickly, leaving my mind spinning. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling, trying to breathe through the rising pressure. I thought leaving that company would free me. Instead, it had pulled me into something deeper and far more dangerous than being ignored for a promotion. Just when I thought I had seen the worst of it, my phone buzzed again, this time with an email notification from my former company's automated system. My old Access ID had been used again. Right now. Live. Someone was still logging in as me. I wasn't anywhere near the office. Someone was escalating things. My pulse hammered. I messaged the unknown number. It happened again. Someone used my ID. This time, the reply came instantly. "Exactly. They want the system to record your ID before the audit starts. They want to pin everything on you." I swallowed hard. Why me? And then the second twist hit, one I didn't see coming. The unknown number replied, "Because the person behind all this knows you can expose them. You handle the systems too well. You saw things without realizing what you saw. You worked too closely with the data they manipulated. And now that you're gone, they're terrified the truth will come out." I read the words slowly, my heart thudding louder with every line. "You weren't just passed over," the message continued. "You were kept down for a reason." The sentence felt like a punch. Every missed promotion, every ignored effort, every time they praised me privately but never publicly, every time someone else took credit, every time they said be patient. It wasn't incompetence. It wasn't oversight. It was intentional. I sat there, breathing heavily, the full weight of it sinking in. And just when I thought the night couldn't get any worse, another message came. This one short, terrifyingly short. "They know someone warned you." I stared at the screen, my spine turning cold. The stakes had just risen. The conflict wasn't just about my career anymore. It was about truth, danger, and a trap I never realized I had been walking into. And now, the people behind it were no longer working in the shadows. They were watching. And whatever they planned next was coming straight for me. The moment I read the message, They know someone warned you. Something in me shifted. All the fear, the confusion, the second-guessing, it tightened into a single, steady determination. If they knew I'd been warned, then hiding wouldn't help me anymore. Silence wouldn't protect me. And pretending I was outside of their mess wouldn't change the fact that they had already pulled me into it. For the first time since leaving that job, I wasn't scared, I was ready. I took a deep breath and opened my laptop. If someone was using my old credentials, then I needed proof I wasn't involved. I needed a trail. I needed something real, something they couldn't twist or rewrite. I logged into my own cloud drive, the one I use for personal templates and work habits. I never saved company documents there, but I did save something else. Timestamps of when I worked, the calendars of when I stayed late, lists of who asked me for what tasks. At first, I kept those records for my own peace of mind. But now, they looked like exactly what I needed, evidence of who depended on me and when. As I scrolled through the data, I found something that made my breath hitch. For months, I had unknowingly documented a pattern. Certain departments only requested help from me right before major deadlines. And one person, Daniel, asked for urgent fixes on financial summaries far too often. Fixes that didn't match his workload, his position, or his skill level. It hit me then. Daniel hadn't just relied on me. He had used me. My clean reports had been covering the inconsistencies beneath his work. And with me gone, those inconsistencies were finally visible. Suddenly the missing reports, the panic, the internal audit, the impersonation, it all aligned. Someone wasn't trying to frame me for something random. They were trying to redirect attention from something very specific. My laptop chimed. A new email, this time from Maya. They're accusing someone. They won't say who yet. But I think you need to see this before things get worse. Attached was a screenshot from a meeting note. It was short, but it was enough. Discrepancies traced to old department logs. Possible misuse of data by previous staff member. My chest tightened. Previous staff member was clearly me. But then I noticed something else in the document. A small detail in the corner. Source DH. DH. Daniel Hayes. I didn't need anyone to confirm it. He had been feeding management selective information, twisting facts, and painting me as the one responsible, all to shield himself. And suddenly, something clicked in my memory, an email from months ago that never made sense. Daniel asking me to finalize a report he labeled urgent, but the data he gave me looked strange. I remember telling him it didn't line up. He told me not to worry, that it was approved by management. That email wasn't in the system anymore. But I kept a personal draft, one I never threw away because something fell off. I searched for it, hands trembling slightly, and there it was. When I opened it, the message inside made everything clear. Just clean up the numbers and send it back. Don't ask questions. Everything hit me at once. He had been altering data. I had unknowingly corrected it. My clean reports were covering his tracks. And now that those mistakes were coming out, he needed a scapegoat. Someone with access. Someone who wouldn't fight back. Someone who was already gone. Me. But what he didn't expect was that I had proof. Proof he couldn't erase. Before I could overthink anything, I forwarded the email, the timestamps, and the patterns to HR, everything neatly organized and explained. I wasn't accusing him, I was presenting facts. Calm, clear, undeniable facts. And then, before HR could respond, I took one more step. I emailed the internal audit team directly. It was a risk, but a necessary one. If the truth was buried inside management, then I had to go around them. Hours passed in silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Then, in the evening, I got a call. Not from HR this time, but from the head of the audit team. His voice was steady, professional, but strict. Thank you for sending these documents. We cross-checked the logs. Your access hasn't been active since your resignation. Someone cloned your old credentials. My heartbeat slowed, not with fear but relief. And the same cloned access was used on 2 other systems, he added. Systems tied to financial activity. Systems tied to Daniel Hayes. I closed my eyes, letting the truth settle. It was finally coming out. We'll handle things from here, he said. But we might need a formal statement later. Of course, I replied. After the call ended, I stayed frozen for a moment, just letting myself breathe. For the first time in weeks, the tension around me loosened. The truth had finally broken through. But the story wasn't done, not yet. Because an hour later, while I was making tea, my phone buzzed again. This time, not from HR. Not from the unknown number. Not from Maya. It was Daniel. His message was short, shaky, and nothing like his usual confident tone. "We need to talk. Please." I didn't mean for this to happen. I stared at the words, surprised. Not by the guilt, by the fear. His fear wasn't about being caught. It was about something else. Before I could reply, another message followed. "You're not safe either. You think I'm the one behind everything, but you don't know the full story." I froze. Then another message. "They used both of us. You need to know who really started this." My breath caught. The twist I wasn't expecting, the one hidden beneath everything, was suddenly staring me in the face. It wasn't just Daniel. Someone above him. Someone with more access. More power. More to lose. Someone I never suspected. And just like that, the story that felt finished opened a new door, one I had no choice but to walk through. Because now, the final truth wasn't about my lost promotions, or Daniel's mistakes, or missing files. It was about the person who had been pulling the strings from the very beginning. And they were finally about to reveal themselves. When the room finally settled after that intense meeting, I felt a strange quiet inside me. It wasn't pride, and it wasn't anger anymore. It was something softer, something calmer, like the storm I had carried for years had finally run out of thunder. Everyone waited for my response, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel pressure to answer quickly. I looked at them, really looked at them, and realized how tired they all were. Tired of running a company that was drowning in its own bad decisions. Tired of fighting each other instead of fixing problems. Tired of pretending everything was fine. And maybe, in that moment, I understood that my revenge wasn't really about destroying them. It was about making them confront what they had ignored for too long. They needed to see how fragile their success had become because of their arrogance. And somewhere deep down, I think they finally did. I told them I needed time. Not a day, not an hour, real time. Time to breathe. Time to think about everything that happened. Time to decide if walking back through those doors would help me grow or trap me again. They didn't argue. They just nodded, maybe knowing they had no right to pressure me anymore. As I walked out of that building, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. The cool air outside felt different, almost like it welcomed me. I stood at the steps of the company I had given years of hard work to, and for once I didn't feel small. I didn't feel overlooked or ignored. I felt whole. The next few days were quiet. No chaos, no long emails, no urgent calls. I woke up early, sat by the window, drank tea slowly, and felt the world move at a pace I had forgotten existed. I spent time with myself, not thinking about revenge or promotions or office politics. I let myself rest, really rest, without guilt. And it surprised me how much peace I found in the silence. But the company didn't stay silent. I kept getting messages. Some were apologies from people who had never spoken up before. Some were pleas from middle-level managers who feared that things were falling apart now that the truth was out. And some were updates from Marcus, letting me know the board was reconsidering their entire leadership structure. For once, my name wasn't missing from the conversation. It was at the center of it. Still, I didn't respond. I needed clarity, and clarity doesn't come when you're trapped in noise. One evening, while walking through the park, I ran into my old mentor. He hadn't worked at the company in years, but he knew everything that happened. Word spreads fast when drama hits a corporate giant. He smiled at me gently, like he understood everything without me saying a word. I told him the whole story, from being passed over for promotion 12 times to the moment they begged me to come back. He listened the way mentors always listen, quietly without judgment. When I finished, he said something that stayed with me. Success isn't just about winning. It's about choosing what deserves your energy. That line kept echoing in my mind. For so long, I had given all my energy to proving myself to people who didn't want to see me. I had worked late nights, given my creativity, sacrificed weekends, and pushed myself beyond exhaustion. All for a promotion they kept dangling like a prize I wasn't allowed to reach. And I finally understood that going back, just because they now realized my worth wasn't the same as me choosing what I truly deserved. The next morning, they requested a final meeting, this time away from the office, somewhere neutral. I agreed, partly out of respect, partly because I needed closure. We met in a quiet cafe, far from the pressure of glass walls and endless deadlines. The board members were there, surprisingly humble, their tone much softer than before. They offered me everything I had once dreamed of: a senior position, full authority in major decisions, creative freedom, better team support, and even the chance to redesign the entire department. It was the kind of offer people fight for their whole lives. But I wasn't the same person who desperately wanted their approval anymore. I thanked them with genuine respect. They had finally realized the truth, and that mattered. But I also told them something I never imagined I would say. I don't want to come back. Not because I'm angry, not because I want you to suffer, but because I've outgrown this place. I want something new, something that lets me breathe. They were shocked, but no one tried to change my mind. Maybe they sensed the calm certainty in my voice. Maybe they knew they had pushed too hard for too long. Or maybe they finally realized that value isn't something you recognize only when it's gone. As I walked out of the cafe, I felt a sense of freedom I had been chasing for years without knowing it. In the weeks that followed, I focused on myself. I slept better. I created plans for the future. I reconnected with people who genuinely supported me. And slowly, I started building something new, something of my own. A consulting project that allowed me to use my strengths without being forced into a box. Companies reached out, wanting my guidance, my ideas, my strategies. Not because they needed someone to blame, but because they respected what I brought to the table. And that was the real victory. Not revenge, not making them beg, but proving to myself that my worth was never tied to one building or one group of people. Months later, I heard that the company I left had changed. New systems, better leadership, more transparency. My departure shook them in ways I hadn't expected. And while I didn't return, I knew my impact stayed behind. One day, Marcus called me just to check in. He said the office still talked about me, how my courage had forced everyone to open their eyes, how my story had become a reminder that ignoring talent comes with a price. I smiled, not out of ego, but because change had finally happened. Not through anger, through truth. As I ended the call, I looked at the life I was creating, a life where I didn't need anyone's permission to shine. A life where opportunities came because I had earned them, not because someone finally decided I was worth noticing. The story that started with being passed over 12 times ended with something far stronger than revenge. It ended with freedom, and the quiet certainty that sometimes the best comeback is choosing not to go back at all.